Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Looking Up with Laird here on Sorare TV. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare. Joined once again by Harry Trades and Sam Tighe to add to our Looking Up with Laird watch list on Sorare Data. If you are a regular watcher of this video, I hope you already hit the like button. If you are not a regular watcher, welcome. And you can hit the like button now, or you can wait. Waiting is fine, as long as it happens at some point. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. There's more content on the channel now than ever before. There's a lot of regular stuff, particularly with MLS coming up. Major League Sorare is the show. It is excellent. And I believe there's some new cap mode competition videos that are going up regularly. So feel free to check all of those out. Speaking of the watch list that I just mentioned, I looked this up just now, the Looking Up with Laird watch list, which we update during the show. And we record this show the day before it's posted. So if you subscribe to the watch list, you will get the names before the video goes live. But also, it is the 5th most liked watch list on Sorare Data, which I find great and also completely unacceptable that is not first. So if you haven't subscribed, their link is in the description of this video. Please check that out and enjoy the names that we're going to add today. We're going to start off with you, Mr. Tighe. Who do you have to add to our watch list today?
Well, before I add a player, I just want to say that I think for the first time in 12 episodes, I am now matching in terms of what I'm wearing to the intro label and thumbnail that we have. And I think you might be as well, Laird.
I am. It's so I had this on and I was like, wait a minute. The thumbnail is that I'm wearing this sweatshirt. And yeah, how about that?
I am too. Amazing. Unbelievable. Completely random. Didn't coordinate. Anyway. On to the players. Right, let's give the audience full disclosure here. The Premier League launched, and Laird basically messaged Harry and I and said, "Let's do some Premier League players. Let's get some value Premier League players this week." And I was like,
"You laughed at me.
You are insane. Like, are you looking at these prices? We're all watching these prices, right? It's very, very difficult to find value in the Premier League because people are going crazy and they're very excited about these cards, and I don't blame them. But it's a difficult task. So I've done my absolute best, and I've come up with one, and I'll give it to you. But I wanted to give it to you with that asterisk, that gigantic asterisk hanging over it, because I think value-wise, this is going to be tough compared to the other leagues. But in a Premier League context, James Tarkowski actually looks kind of reasonable. Now, we'll look at the prices here. And again, for the L15s and the scores, it's not that great. But actually, in rare, I'm actually kind of into it. The rare price is much more appealing to me than the limited price. Not bad.
Wow.
Genuinely not bad. And look, I still think people will probably need a bit of convincing here, because like Everton sit 19th in the league. They got weaker in the transfer window. They're the only team in the Premier League to do so. And they're probably the worst run club in the country. So why you would buy into that quite literally, I can understand why you might need some convincing. But the key here is Sean Dyche, right? Sean Dyche has taken over at Everton. He is known for defensively very stout football. He's known for some very stingy tactics. He's known for his clean sheets and his grit and his stubbornness, and it sort of it filters into his players. And James Tarkowski has already played for Sean Dyche for a number of years at Burnley.
Yep.
And if you scale back onto his scores, you have to go back more than a year, because obviously Burnley sloped off end of last season and then Everton happened. But somewhere beyond a year, actually, it looks kind of good. Not bad is probably how I'd put it. And if Tarkowski can reach that level under Sean Dyche, then maybe you're looking at a card that probably outperforms its current price, even in a Premier League standard. If you can't afford the top options, but you want to get involved in the frenzy, I would say you need to take a look at a player like this with something changing that can maybe elevate him. And Tarkowski linking back up with his old manager, I think, has the potential to elevate him.
This is a fun one. I was not expecting this because, yeah, like you said, there just aren't that many values in the Premier League. And that price is like really surprising. 0.065 ETH is the floor now. It's not even like some absurd floor as well. Looks like the average for the limited is about $21 we're seeing. And yeah, I think the reunification of Tighe and Tarkowski is like is a fun one because, well, fun in terms of Sorare. It's really the opposite of fun when it comes to the football itself. But you're right, like he does have a record of some really big AA games. Like this one just happened to pop up with me, game week 135, but you don't see all around scores of 40 against Liverpool much. But you picture like how much defensive work Tarkowski probably had to do in that match. And I wonder when you discuss, or when you were thinking about it, how much of would he stay if they got relegated? Did that come into your mind?
Yeah, I mean, interesting one. We're no longer scared of relegation,
right?
Because of the second division. So my guess is that Tarkowski is of such a profile, and to be fair, you know, this half season with Everton aside, like is an established, very good Premier League level centre back.
Yes.
I would imagine that if he got relegated, he would go back to the Premier League. I don't know what that situation would be. If he went down, he'd obviously just like rip it to shreds. Because at championship level, he would absolutely clean up. So basically, where I was once obviously very worried about suggesting maybe a player from a club who look like they're going to get relegated, it almost doesn't actually matter that much anymore. It's nice, isn't it nice?
Yeah, I mean, you're almost. I mean, if they get relegated and they stay with that club, like it's almost a benefit. You know, like amazing, you get the extra utility, no less. Like, forget about the fact that they're playing against weaker competition, but they're also playing more often theoretically. And so, yeah, it's funny to see Andy Robertson as a similar player, because I don't think James Tarkowski and Andy Robertson have ever been spoken in the same sentence. But like, here we are, like similar L15 and ages, and you're certainly not going to get Andy Robertson for the price of a Tarkowski. I'm not saying they're the same, but I'm just saying
no.
They show up in a similar. If you're just looking at numbers, they show up.
Yeah, you might
close together.
You might extend this argument to Everton's defenders, like if you want to, like if you don't actually like Tarkowski very much, but you know you're more inclined to be someone like Harry who doesn't like players this old. Then I don't think they've got any under 23 centre backs. But Ben Godfrey isn't that old; like he's about 24, 25. He's just returning to fitness. I would imagine that whoever plays in the centre of defence gets a bump. It could be Mina. It could be Cody, but given the fact that it could be Godfrey, Mina, or Cody, but it definitely will be the old dog Tarkowski, Sean Dyche's old trusted lieutenant, that to me feels like the safest of the four bets. And we are still waiting to find out who Sean Dyche actually selects at centre-back.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we'd be more surprised if Tarkowski was the one dropped than if he started. So... yeah, just based on the history that he had with Dyche.
I mean, we're all assuming that he's going to install a very similar blueprint to what he had at Burnley, and the best way to do that is to put the player that played it for like 5 years right in the middle of it. So like, it doesn't have to be too complicated. Whoever his partner is, like, we'll see how that really progresses. I'm guessing it's not going to be Cody because he has a bit of a reputation for only being able to play in the middle of a back three, because he plays so deep that it doesn't really work in a two. Plays a run on side. And he used to play in midfield. Maybe he gets moved to midfield. I don't know. But I don't really know how that situation is going to shake out. But I feel pretty certain that Tarkowski is going to be a centerpiece.
Yeah, because Cody played mostly in the middle when he was at Wolves, right? In their three-man back line. Yeah, so
yeah.
I don't think there's any expectation that Dyche plays three, right?
Oh, I've rarely seen him do it.
Right.
Rarely.
Yeah, I like it. What's funny is that Tarkowski is the kind of player that we always used to discuss in DFS because you would just never play him because you tend not to play like center backs. But it was always that one that like he'd get his head on a cross and you're just like, oh, that's why he's around sometimes. So yeah, always like Tarkowski. Anyway, Mr. Trades, who do you got this week?
I've got 2 Premier League under 23 players for us this week. And I was mentioning to you guys in the chat, it became apparent that it is very tough to find value in the Premier League realm. Just obviously, launch week and whatever. It's going to be sort of tough to nail down that like true value. But I've got 2 players. One is more value based than the other. But we're going to go with the value based first, and that is Morgan Gibbs-White of Nottingham Forest. Had a really good season last year in the Championship on loan to Sheffield. He's a set piece taker. I think Forest paid a stupid amount of money for him. I think it was like 50 mil from Wolves.
It was a big fee that was like, with a lot of add-ons that was going to go to about 44 million pounds or something like that. But it's initially more like 30. Like there's a fair few add-ons.
Fair.
Regardless,
stupid money. Yeah,
it's a lot of money.
It's crazy money. English tax and all that malarkey. But yeah, he fits my criteria in the sense that, set piece taking. Don't get me wrong. He's playing on a team that are struggling right now. But like we just mentioned, is it that bad of a situation if he goes down? I don't know what sort of clauses we got in contracts to where, he's allowed to look for moves elsewhere and whatever if they do get relegated. But for the price he's at right now, don't get me wrong, he does have an ankle injury right now. I think he's back in February at some point. But under 23 until 2024, set piece taking midfielder. If he does go down to the Championship, like you can see some of his Sheffield United scores, he was hitting some nice high 80s on some days where he got decisive. So, I mean, I'm not banking on him or them going down because they have a good chance not to. Over the last few games, they've sort of picked up a few results which have been big. Leeds next game, as we can see, Fulham, obviously Man City game's going to be tough. West Ham, Everton, another 2 winnable games, but very tough nonetheless. And the price he's at right now, I look at it and see value, i.e. Premier League value. Like there's just not much to compare it with. That's the issue. Like, you can, of course, you can find players who are going to score better than Morgan Gibbs-White in other leagues, similar ages, but ultimately you're paying that sort of Premier League tax, unfortunately, or Sorare Premier League tax. And I don't think it's terrible in terms of value.
I don't think it's terrible.
It's not. That's where we are. That's where we've got to, unfortunately, with these Premier League under 23s, because they don't score that well. Like, really, you're looking at Haaland obviously scores well because he scores goals, but like outside of that, like even like Foden can't get a game. Mount doesn't score well. Like, and we value these youngsters as like the best in the world. They're playing in the best league, the most decorated league, but ultimately they just don't score very well. Like in Sorare terms, which is an issue. Reece James injured. Like there's a few really good scorers on there. If they're fit, but for the most part, there's my boy Slattery.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
He's doing all right. Slattery, he's doing all right.
He's doing well. He is doing well. But yeah, I don't know. It's just tough. It was really tough for me this week, honestly, to find anything that really stood out.
I mean, for full disclosure to everybody watching, like I said this, like, hey, why don't you guys try to get the Premier League? Which was much easier for me to say because I'm not the one doing any of this work. Like I just hit the record button. So like it's easy for me to be like, go find some Premier League players. And while the looking up part is a lot of it is like players who maybe are in like better situations and will do better in the future, that also like applies to the price. And so it is difficult when we have these new Premier League players coming out and everyone is like rushing to buy them because that's going to push prices up. So finding like undervalued players, it wasn't a fair assignment. You guys took it quite well. So thank you for doing that. But there are
you say that there, we've done nothing but complain about that assignment in the first 13 minutes.
I think we're off to a good start. That's all I'm saying. And but Harry, I agree. I was looking at this the other day where I forget if I was showing off the player rankings page to somebody, but it was like I filtered it by Premier League under 23. And you're just kind of look at this list and you're like, it's actually not that filled with like even like really good or even like above average scoring players. Like it just feels like about a bunch of average. And if you looked at like the all leagues and you're just like, okay, let me just like pick out the Premier League guys, you got to scroll a while. Like it's just not a league that for those who like focus on under 23s, it's just not a league that's like worth really focusing on because they like under 23 players just don't play massive roles in the biggest league in the world. Like it's understandable, but like, you think of players and you're just like, oh yeah, Bukayo Saka is an absolute star. And you look at his SO5 scores and you're like, they're okay. Like they're good. But like, if you're trying to win under 23, it's just like not the type of card you're going to go after. And you're going to have to pay more for it because it's in the Premier League. So
Yeah,
tough assignment.
100%.
So since Sam only had one, here's our non-Premier League player who's being added to our list this week.
Yeah, but just want to say, I actually really like that shout from Harry. Morgan Gibbs White is really good. And just looking at those prices, like what the rare was going for, it seemed for a year and a half left under 23, it did seem pretty reasonable. He's had a bit of a disrupted first half of the season, but he's serious talent. So nice one, Harry. Hope your second one's just as good. I only found one. And then I basically moved straight over to France. Because Romain Fav has been loaned to Lorient. I don't know if Fav is a Sorare like old school legend or not. I don't know if his like cards were on the platform at the time, but you look back at the old scores from when he was with Brest, so a year ago or so, and I'd imagine that if he was around at the time, things would have been looking pretty good. Yeah, you got to click the those ones. Remember those ones? I guess he probably wasn't quite on the platform, was he?
He might probably had enough.
Maybe I don't know, because he joined Lyon and then obviously I don't know if Lorient were there, but anyway, he's gone to Lorient, and they are a team who this window kind of got torn apart in attack a little bit, sort of victims of their own success. Always feel sorry for a team when this kind of thing happens. Like, oh, Lorient, they're doing pretty well. Oh, interesting. They've got
have some good players.
Yeah, interesting. They've got some good players. Maybe we should take those players away from them so they don't have them anymore. And it's basically what happened with Terem Moffi, who left, went to Nice, and it also happened to Dango Ouattara, who went to Bournemouth. So that's a really tough gig in that one. But so in their place, they've kind of been shrewd, as Lorient almost always are. They're not going to go and spend that 50-odd million or 45 million on like all those new players. They're going to loan in Fav instead. You look back at those old scores, Harry, he was taking set pieces. Can you believe it? I mean,
I remember. I do remember.
Some of those heights are very, very high. And I imagine he walks into this Lorient team and takes over some of those set piece duties and finally starts to get his grip on a main role in an attack once again, because Lyon he's never really been a massive part of this team, unfortunately. And if he can get back to those old scores, then these current prices probably look a touch low. I did check in with Genesis, as I always do with French stuff, and he goes, yeah, basically, if he gets anywhere near the old stuff, then we're laughing. Absolutely laughing.
It's a nice L15. Just saying.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the L15, you're not spending this much money for a cap option, but you might spend this much money for someone who can go into cap first, and then he becomes a part of your team from there, which is kind of how I'm treating players as well. I'll buy one for cap, but I really want them to play a bigger part in my gallery as well, particularly someone like Fav, who you would keep for a while. So if you are running those teams, then yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does seem like exactly the kind of player you should be playing in cap, the one that just happens to be low right now, and the expectations are quite high. That the price seems like nobody cares about the move, which I guess that's not entirely true, because he was obviously much lower. I guess that's during the World Cup and then a little bit as they came back. But I guess it's almost double now that I say that, $17 to $32 or so, but it still seems quite low. I mean, obviously he loses the U23 eligibility at the end of this season, but it's perfect. He's a perfectly fine player for any other competition after that. And like you said, like in the right opportunity, we've seen the success in the right opportunity, and there does seem to be a path for that for a similar opportunity to come about. So yeah, that's a fun one.
I don't know how quickly it occurs, and obviously that under 23, expiring in the summer does start a bit of a ticking clock for some people, if that's what you want to use them for. And Lorient, because they've had their attack ripped apart, it's questionable. Like, okay, how quickly do they settle into this new groove? But they're a pretty damn good team, pretty well run, pretty good fun. And Fav is a proven quality Ligue 1 player, and if he goes back on set, like his set pieces are brilliant. And it was back when he was with Brest a couple of years ago. I remember looking at all the different waffle charts of like who has the highest expected assists, who has the most chances created, who has the most shot creating actions. And like at the top of the list, like top 5 in every single category was Roman Fav because of his set piece majesty. Like he was not just on set pieces, he was on set pieces. Like really, really good. If they let him go, then the sky's the limit for him, really. And I know obviously with him playing in Champion Europe, as I've learned from you, Laird, you're not that viable unless you can hit a couple of 80 pluses. And in that history of scores, there were a few very, very strong dark greens. So it was the final thing that really convinced me to say, yeah, on his day, actually, he can put up an absolutely huge score, even in Champion Europe.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to harp on that L15, but it's going to be low for a while, too. Like, he could even bang a few hundreds now, and he's got enough of those orange scores that it'll keep it low for a little bit. Sorry, were you going to add something, Harry?
Just the dream.
No, I was just going to say, it's like, obviously, yeah, it depends what role this Enzo is it Lefay or Lefay?
Lefay,
yeah. How that's going to like affect things in terms of like he's on everything right now. Do they share? Like, you know, that would be the interesting dynamic at play there. So, yeah, if your guy ends up getting everything off him, then you could see Lefay completely like losing, you know, all set pieces and a lot of AA game maybe. So I don't know. Yeah, it depends how that all like evens itself out.
I'm hearing, Harry, all I'm hearing is Lorient super stack, Enzo Lefay, Roman Fav.
Yeah,
let's go.
Let's do it.
Weren't there rumors that he was leaving too, though? I mean, obviously he didn't leave this window, but like even if you have to wait until next season, like I think we're going to see just as many summer transfer rumors around Lefay than
Lefay. He got. I think Bournemouth put up an offer for it. Bournemouth offered, 30 million for just about everybody that breathes in this window, and they nearly bought all of them as well. They're a bit Nottingham Forest at times, but there was definitely, when Ouattara went, there was definitely a thing to say, and Bournemouth have also agreed a deal for Enzo Lefay, and I'm sure everybody in the Sorare world went, no, like, don't do this to me. Fortunately, it didn't go through.
And if they go down, he's not going to end up there anyway. Like, he's not going to go to the championship.
No.
So
no way.
All right. I like it. Harry, why don't you get us back into England, please? Where everybody wants to hear from us.
Of course. So yeah, my second and final player is Crystal Palace's Michael Olise.
Olise.
Now that he's of French nationality.
He doesn't have an accent over his E, so I was calling him Olise for ages. But Palace in pre-season, they welcomed all the players back, and they got them all to say their name to camera. And he said Michael Olise. So we're going with Olise.
Interesting. This is I was reading. I mean, you'll know about this as well, Sam, I imagine. But you know when he scored that free kick against United, and he didn't celebrate, and everyone's now come out, and it's like a big thing that like Olise just doesn't celebrate scoring goals. Apparently, like he's never done it as a kid. He just never got like I don't know what it is. It'd be interesting. I don't know if you know any reason behind this, Sam, but yeah, I thought that was a really interesting.
Have you seen any of his post-match interviews?
No, I can't say I have.
He's probably delivered the worst post-match interview I've ever seen this season.
That's a total opposite that I thought you were going to say.
No, it was like consistent one-word answers. It was worse than Marshawn Lynch, who at least said about 5 words, regarding not being fined. So I don't know the guy, but I would be tempted to say that his lack of celebration is due to a lack of personality, because it doesn't really exude in any way, shape, or form, except when he's dribbling. Basically, with the ball. It's like the only scenario where he's comfortable when he has the ball.
Interesting. Yeah, he does seem pretty peculiar in that sense after learning about that. Yeah, the celebration thing. But what a player! I mean, in terms of like if we're talking set pieces again, there's always seems to be a theme with my picks. Yeah, a little bit more expensive than the Gibbs White shout. Olise is fit, so you could say that obviously helps. He's under 23 until 2026. He is Palace's main set piece taker. I'm just looking on Sorare data here. He's taken 44 corners this season, and have scored 2 free kicks in 2. So 100% completion in his free kicks.
That's fun.
Which is interesting. I don't know if I couldn't hear you guys for a little bit then, but I think we're back. I can't hear. Yeah, I can't hear you, Sam, for some reason.
Sorry, no, my car alarm went off. I was shouting at my wife.
Oh, you're good. I was like, Sam's talking here, but
no, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to ruin the recording. And it turns out it wasn't my car alarm; it was on the TV. So I'm double stupid.
You're good. You're all good. But yeah, set piece taking, winger / cam in the Prem. 21 years old. You got tons of utility there. Yeah, a little bit more expensive than my Gibbs White Shell, like I said, but somebody that can put up good AA scores on his given day. He's always liable for an assist. I think he got 2 assists and 4 assists, 2 goals in the last. I'm looking at his L15 here, and he's top of the net decisives for Palace with 6. So yeah, somebody that, is he probably too good for Palace? Probably. Could I tell you where he's going to fit in? Probably not. But he's somebody right now that has a lot of responsibility in this team. Set piece taking wise, Vieira seems to love him. And yeah, like we've already said, Premier League under 23 players don't seem to score that well. So you're not going to see green after green, Caesar green for 10 games in a row. It doesn't really happen, especially dark green. But there's outliers. I'm looking at a 99 here, 82, 72. A few 60s, that's the issue here. I'm picking players that I really like aesthetically and in real life, but ultimately they don't actually score as well as I'd love them to on the game. Not to say I wouldn't like their card, but this is a type of player that I think has the ability to score exceptionally well in a better team. I would like to think than Palace. Not to say the Palace aren't great, but if he's playing for a better club and he has the same amount of responsibilities. You're creating more chances as you like to think. You're on the ball more. I think that could really favor a player like Elise. Do
you think there's any chance they do some sort of Premier League under 23 competitions? I guess there are not enough goalkeepers.
Yeah. Is there? I was scrolling through the list on Sorare. Like, there's not even enough players, really.
There's only 2 goalkeepers, isn't there?
2 goalkeepers, yeah.
And they're both awful. Bazunu and Melier are both. They scored terribly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be tough. Elise's really good. Like, he's really,
really good. Yeah.
Like, sometimes we talk about players with just like a really obvious natural ability, like a natural feel for the ball. And he's one of those guys. His corner taking back at Reading was unbelievable. Unbelievable set pieces at Reading, and that he continued at Palace. And Vieira took a while to warm up to him. This is a Vieira thing. That he's very he basically buys players and then just makes them sit there for like 6 months and like earn his trust. He's very slow to warm up to people. I don't know why that is, but it is the case. But Elise has kind of finally this season broken into his good books. He's kind of been putting up some nice scores, and like he is a seriously good player, man. Like there are some cards that, like you say, I'd like to own just because I know they're really good, and he's one of them.
Mm-hmm. Was there any transfer talk, or is he just not there long enough for them to for him to want to move?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not yet.
Yeah,
not yet.
I don't think he's done enough. Yeah, he hasn't really done much, has he? In terms of a sustained. He hasn't had one good season at this point. He's had a couple good games type of thing. Yeah. But the talent's there. It's just can he get the numbers on the board? Unfortunately, is how football works these days. Numbers talk, data talks, and ultimately, he has the sort of building blocks, I would say, to get that 10 goals, 10 assists season under his belt. Maybe not for Palace, but I think in the future, at some point before he turns or ineligible for 23s, I think he'll have a really cool season in that sense, numbers wise.
Yeah, I guess you probably want him to stay there instead of going to a bigger club where he may not play as much given 100%. His age. But
he has all the talent in the world, though. All the talent.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, just scrolling through this list, and I know that this is the player rankings on Sorare, just the Premier League U23 players, and knowing that Harry focuses on U23, asking for Premier League values amongst this list Again, wasn't fair, but I asked anyway, and here we are after another excellent show. That's all. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for that. I know that was one of the harder assignments, I guess, that you've gotten, but I think it was all great. And so, if everybody watching here, if you could please hit the like button. And again, subscribe to Sorare TV, subscribe to the Sorare Data watch list that we were showing on the screen. Again, if you are subscribed to that list, you have the players that we're going to talk about right now. The video goes out roughly 24 hours from now, if not a little more. So take advantage of that. And yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen, and good luck with all your lineups.